All right, TeamStrub Day 54. Greetings from Dickinson, North Dakota. I'm here with Kris from the Best Friends Mentoring Program. Kris, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon, I guess.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Very glad. So, Kris, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do?
Okay, I'm Kris Fehr. I'm the director of the Best Friends Mentoring Program here in Dickinson. I help kids. I find mentors for little kids, and that helps them.
Great. So, talk a little bit more about the program. What does the program consist of?
Okay, well, what we do is we are looking for children, to help children who are at risk, maybe of future educational difficulties or not graduating from high school, perhaps even just on the short term, maybe having trouble making friends, having trouble fitting in, maybe not getting their homework done, those kinds of things. So that makes them at risk later. And those children are referred to our program, and then we find big friends, is what a lot of the kids call them, big friends, but we find mentors for them. Those are adult volunteers, age 16 or older, to be matched with them for a friendship, role model, and guidance, an hour a week for about a year.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of those relationships extend beyond a year?
We have a number of those relationships that have gone on, say, for 8, 9, 10 years, and the families become friends, and even after the kids graduate from high school, they're still friends. I have one mentor that I can think of. He and his mentee, well, he's not a mentee anymore, he's 20 years old. They go bow hunting together now, text each other back and forth. How's your car? You know, so it's fun.
Sure. And this program may sound very similar, and actually later this week I'm visiting with Nicole Burdick, the director of Big Brothers Big Sisters in Rapid City,
Sure.
just a few hours south of here. Talk about the similarities to Big Brothers Big Sisters and maybe the history of the program a little bit.
Yeah, the program started about 20 years ago. We're just starting now with our 20th year. We celebrated getting a new logo. But it started years ago with people just noticing that there were kids who were school age, just not having a lot of adult supervision, tending to get into some trouble, not high level trouble, but where they thought an intervention from positive adults in their lives would be possible. So that's how it got going. What was the rest of the question?
So we spoke briefly about the similarities with Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Yeah.
You looked into possibly starting a chapter here.
Yep, they looked into that. I wasn't here then, but the group looked into that. For various reasons, it just wasn't possible at the time. So they said, well, we can do our own, and they modeled it after a program that was existing somewhere else. Then when they hired me, one of the first things that I was directed to by the board was to find a manual for a model program, and what we found was the Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, which is a model program for delinquency and violence prevention in youth. And that lays out exactly how to do a mentoring program, what positions you need to have in, why do you do certain things. It's all laid out for you there, and we followed that. There's not a lot of differences. There's a few differences, but you know, not a lot. That's a quality program, and it's one of the very few youth programs that shows results.
Great.
So.
And there's a lot of programming throughout the year. This past weekend, actually, of course, if you're watching this later on, today is July 7th.
Yeah.
So we're just off of the Independence Day weekend, and it was a huge weekend for your program.
Yeah, it was. Well, in Dickinson here, they have something called Rough Rider Days,
Gotcha.
which is rodeos, beer gardens, street dances, those kinds of things. And we had our 18th year of providing something called Family Fun Day. Right after the big parade, people come to the park where we have inflatables and food vendors and music, and it's an alcohol-free time where people can just relax and be with their kids, let their kids play, have fun, and good afternoon in the park. So that's our major public awareness and major fundraiser of the year.
And then the 5K. So this morning
yes, the 5K, that was new this year.
Yeah.
We did the 5K. That was an existing race for 40 years, and the people doing it just were really burnt out, and they asked us if we would take over management. We did. We had 198 people who registered and showed up, and it was tremendous. I would have never thought we'd have that many people, but it was a great morning. I was there at 6 in the morning with the rest of our staff, and it was beautiful, and people were so happy and excited. A lot of families turned out. That was a great time.
That's fantastic. And so for events like that, volunteers can help make a big difference in the execution and everything.
Right. If you can just volunteer, say, an hour or two at an event, I mean, that's really not much out of your time. A lot of those volunteers are runners, and for some reason or another, they didn't want to be in or couldn't or something, and so they were more than happy to volunteer their time. They know what they're doing. it just went like clockwork, and we so appreciate volunteers.
And so that's one way to volunteer, but the other, of course, the major way to volunteer would be to become a mentor.
Yep.
So talk about the process. How do you select mentors? Is there a big
sure.
screening process and then the matching process?
Yeah, it's a little involved for us, but we always keep in mind that we are dealing with other people's kids. So if I wouldn't match my own child with a person, I couldn't obviously match someone else's, you know.
Sure.
So that's they call that the mom test. But formally what we do, they fill out the application, we do background checks, screenings, which is, you know, the abuse and neglect of children and just general criminal records, and then also the sex offender registry. And then we interview all of their references, and then we interview them one-on-one, and then they get to go to a 2-hour training. So we get to see them and know them on various different levels to see what we think and if how they're interacting with us. We've had situations where we just ask people to volunteer with us for a while, doing different things. Either we don't have someone to match them with, or we would like to get them to know them better before we match them with a child.
Let's talk about the scope of the program. I mean, how many matches are we talking about right now? And do you have a queue of kids backed up? Do you have a queue of mentors backed up? I mean, what are we looking at right now?
Well, yeah, we always have kids on the waiting list. We're not advertising right now. As soon as we send out a letter to referral sources, which would be counselors and teachers and so forth, we will probably get 20 kids coming in the next day. So we try not to let them sit on the waiting list for a long time. We don't have a lot of mentors sitting there either right now.
Sure.
Normally in a year's time, we're down right now because of staffing, but in a year's time we will work with 80 to 100 children.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so right now I think we have about 50 active matches. School just got out, some kids are moving, mentors are graduating, you know, so we always have a little bit of flux right at the end of the school year, then we ramp up again starting in August. Yeah.
Great. Let's talk about funding. How is the program funded?
Our program is funded only through donations. Whether they be grants or sometimes we go before the city commission and ask them for a subsidy or, you know, some tax dollars, but usually it's grants and special fundraisers. So like we just had that family fun day, that's a big fundraiser. We have a thing that's just for adults, which is a chocolate affair, which is chocolate and wine tasting. This year we added beer to it. That was very successful. That's a way for us to touch people in the community that maybe wouldn't know about the program or wouldn't donate in another way. And then we have throughout the year various other things that we do. Sometimes someone will throw a fundraiser for us, or we'll send in a donation. There's something in North Dakota called Giving Hearts Day. All nonprofits get together, and it's a one-day online give-a-thon, and we participate in that. So those types of things.
And this is a very tight-knit community here in Dickinson, so you do see a lot of community support. And it's not a very expansive city. You can drive across pretty quickly.
Yeah, takes less than 10 minutes from one end to the other, even with the increased traffic here.
Yeah. Yeah, so you've seen a lot of community support for the program, and I mean, I noticed just driving into the city on Saturday night, Sunday, that there are signs up for the days and everything, that, you know, that all the website and everything mentions the program, so it seems like this is a major program in the area.
It is major. It's been here for 20 years now, and people are used to it. And we as staff and our board really strive to have a quality program, quality over quantity. We don't want anybody falling through the cracks. We don't want to accidentally match, you know, the wrong people together. So we really do spend a lot of time. It's a time-intensive process.
And you're very proud of all the success stories. I positioned us here for the interview because we've got, you know, tons and tons of news clips and everything behind us. So you must be very proud of all of the matches and everything, having watched them grow up.
Yep, we are. A lot of these mentors that are on here, now they're married and they have children of their own, and many of them still keep in touch. You know, my son had a mentor when my husband was deployed, and boy, he still talks about, remember when I taught him how to play chess? Remember when we made models together? You know, my son's almost 20 now, so.
So you said you're from the Bismarck area?
Yeah, I am from Bismarck, yes,
so
originally.
let's tell the world what's so wonderful about living in North Dakota.
In North Dakota, great people, clean air, wide open spaces, and good old-fashioned values, but also people helping people. One-on-one, that's really what makes a big difference. That's what makes it a great place to be.
And this community's been growing pretty quickly over the past few years.
Just in the last few years with that oil boom, I think, well, I don't know, we're up to, they think around 30,000 now or something. And when we moved here, I think the population was probably not even 10, 12,000 maybe. So that's, you know, that's quite a growth. A lot of that growth happened just in the last 3 or 4 years though. So that's, the oil boom is what makes it hard for us to do our jobs. We have a lot of kids in need. A lot of families are moving here, so you have transitional families. That is a stress on the kids. They are moving from place to place without becoming connected to a community anywhere. And then they're moving again. Parents are looking for jobs. But the other part of that for us is we don't have a lot, there's not a lot of staff to choose from. We can't pay the big oil field wages. We pay pretty good for a nonprofit, but we're certainly not paying $20 an hour or $30 an hour. So that makes it hard for us to find staff. So we have had to just keep in mind, what's the capacity of our staff to have a quality program to work with these kids?
And when we talk about the finances of it, just to dig in a little bit more deeply into the staff, you said you have a grant writer on staff, or?
Yeah, we have a development coordinator. She's development and volunteer coordinator. You know, you really do have to have someone who concentrates on the money and getting it. And you also have then program people, they concentrate on the children, doing a good job, doing the best job possible for them. And all of us work together. It's a very small staff, so you can't be just one thing, you have to be lots of things.
And that's why it's so great to have volunteers come in, you know, that some of that work, you know, that the sort of work that I did this morning, that sort of busy work, you know, that you're inputting data or whatever, that's the sort of thing that can allow your team to really focus on grant writing and focus on program coordination and those sorts of things, yes?
Yes, that's true. And that's one thing that we miss. Like I said, there are jobs that pay very, very well here for, say, an administrative person or someone who might have higher skills for your office. So we depend on volunteers. And a lot of times we'll have someone like you who really is very techy and can sit down, and they'll give us 2 hours and they can sit down and do a spreadsheet and put all those addresses in. So that's perfect. Then we have maybe we have a retired lady who comes in and does a lot of scanning as we're trying to digitize all of our records, get rid of all the paper we have in our office and digitize the records. So, you know, those are the people we're looking at. Retired people who have skills, young people, anyone who has the time to volunteer for us. Yeah.
Let's give you the opportunity to plug your website, social media channels, or anything where people can learn more about how they can either volunteer and or make a donation to your organization.
Sure. Well, we're on Facebook. It's Best Friends Mentoring Program on Facebook. And you can read a little bit more about our events and everything there. We try to update that pretty often. Our webpage is bestfriendsnd.org, and then we do have a blog.
Put that up on the screen there.
Yeah, and then we do have a blog which is, I think it's bestfriendsnd.areavoices.
Gotcha.
So you'll be on our blog.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Pictures and everything.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Kris, thank you so much for taking the time this morning.
Thank you. We
really,
so appreciate you.
Well, thank you. It's been wonderful to be here. Again, I've been here for a few days, so I got a good taste of western North Dakota. They call it the Western Edge.
The Western Edge, yeah, because you can't see there's nothing here but dead space for a long time.
So, really wonderful community. It really was a lot of fun, and glad to be here. So
great.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
And we'll sign off here.